The morning sky was clouded, as if the heavens themselves were mourning. The silence in the small cemetery was broken only by the soft rustle of trees and the distant cries of mourning guests. A little girl named Emily, no older than 8, stood trembling beside the casket that held her father. Her small hands clutched a worn-out teddy bear, the last gift her father gave her before his sudden passing. Emily's father, James Carter, had been a firefighter, a local hero in their town. Just a week before, he'd lost his life while rescuing 3 children from a burning building. His bravery had made headlines, but it had also left his only daughter without the man who had once carried her on his shoulders. Every morning before school, her mother, Claire, stood beside her, eyes red and swollen. But Emily didn't cry. She just stood there, silent, her face pale and blank, as if waiting for something. The funeral had begun with the usual prayers and speeches. Neighbors, friends, and fellow firefighters had spoken of James's courage, his laughter, and his devotion to his family. But nothing reached Emily's ears. Her gaze never left the mahogany casket that lay open, revealing her father's still, peaceful face. When it was time for the final farewell, the priest gently invited the family to come forward. Claire knelt down and whispered to Emily, "Say goodbye, sweetheart." Emily didn't respond. She just stepped forward slowly, every movement deliberate and careful. She climbed the small step stool placed beside the coffin and leaned over her father's chest. Her tiny arms wrapped around him, and she laid her head against his unmoving body. Everyone watched silently, many already in tears. But then something strange happened. As Emily whispered, "Daddy, I miss you. Please come back," a strong gust of wind rushed through the cemetery. The sky darkened momentarily, and several guests looked up, startled. But the real shock came a second later. James's hand, which had been resting on his chest, twitched. A nurse in attendance gasped. Several people screamed. Claire fainted on the spot. At first, everyone thought it must be a trick of the eye, a muscle reflex, something medical. But then James's fingers moved again, slowly, then more deliberately. His chest began to rise, he was breathing. The priest dropped his Bible in shock. Emily backed away, her eyes wide, her teddy bear falling to the ground. Panic and disbelief spread like wildfire. A firefighter rushed forward and checked for a pulse. "He's alive," he shouted. "My God, he's alive." The ambulance, which had been scheduled to return the empty coffin later, was frantically called. Medics arrived within minutes and confirmed the unbelievable. James had a weak but undeniable pulse. The funeral was halted. Emily and her mother were taken to the hospital with him, their faces reflecting both confusion and overwhelming hope. Over the next few days, James remained unconscious but stable. Doctors were baffled. He had been declared clinically dead 2 days earlier, after his body had been recovered from the collapsed building. No brain activity had been detected. His death certificate had already been signed. Yet, here he was, alive. When he finally woke up a week later, the first thing he asked was, "Where's Emily?" His voice was hoarse, his mind foggy, but his memory intact. He had no recollection of being dead, only of saving the children and then darkness. Emily was brought to him, and when she hugged him again, the entire hospital staff wept. News spread quickly, and soon, media crews were at the hospital trying to get interviews. But the Carter family declined all offers. Claire released a short statement saying, "We don't have the answers. We are just grateful." But the question remained, what had happened? Some said it was a medical miracle, a rare case of Lazarus syndrome, where a person spontaneously returns to life after failed resuscitation. Others believed it was divine intervention, a sign from above in response to Emily's pure love and desperate plea. There were those who dismissed it entirely, saying it was a misdiagnosis, a mistake. But for those who had been at the funeral, who had seen James lie still and cold and then move when his daughter hugged him, there was no simple explanation. Emily, in her innocence, believed it with all her heart. "Daddy heard me," she told her classmates later. He came back because I asked him to. James never went back to firefighting. He chose instead to spend every day with his family, volunteering at local schools, and speaking quietly at community centers, not about his resurrection, but about the fragility of life and the strength of love. He never tried to explain what had happened, but he never dismissed it either. He would often look at Emily while she played in the yard and whisper, "You saved me." Years passed and the story became a local legend. The cemetery where James had almost been buried was visited by people from all over. Some came to pray, some to reflect, and some to just stand near the place where the impossible had happened. Emily grew up with the memory forever etched in her heart. She never forgot the feeling of her father's cold body suddenly moving beneath her arms, nor the way the wind had seemed to answer her prayer. And no matter how much time passed, every year on the day of the funeral that wasn't she and her father would return to the same spot, sit quietly by the headstone that had been prepared but never used, and hold hands in silence. They didn't need to speak. They both knew that love, especially the love between a father and his daughter, was strong enough to call someone back from the edge of eternity.